John, don't run away with that guitar. Tell us about Tell us about that instrument.
This instrument here, this is the Washburn Special. It's a Washburn Special. Its size is called a parlor type guitar. Became very fashionable in the 1800s to play the guitar. People were able to afford some instruments. Now, in 1908, a guitar cost $1.86 in the Sears catalog, of the 1908 Sears catalog. So if you had a couple of bucks, you could get a guitar. And that's one of the things that boosted its popularity. And even during these struggling times, you could get a nice guitar or have a hand-me-down. Now this one is from 1892. It's a remake of it. It's from 1892. It's the parlor type guitar, 6 strings, and the guitar's ancestry goes back to like around the 1500s. So, and it keeps evolving as times change. And originally the guitar had 10 strings. That was 5 courses doubled, like the 12-string guitar, but it had 5. And then the 6th string was added on later because of the importance of the bass, and that kind of opened it up for better usage. And metal strings were added on around the 1550s. And so you had 2 kinds. You had the gut string for pizzicato style playing with the fingers, and then the steel string. So that's what this is, a steel string acoustic guitar.
John, before you were playing this instrument, the Jews.
That's one. That over there, I have to have right here in my pocket. Now this here.
That's when you got off the train before, right?
Well, I had somebody make it for me.
Okay.
It's maybe from an old railroad track. You take an old railroad track, you get a tool, and you put a little piece of wire inside, and you turn it into an instrument.
Where did that instrument?
This is called the Jew's harp. Has different names to it, and it actually comes from the east, from Mongolia to India to southern Europe. Wound itself up in England. It keeps migrating, and it got found out in Tennessee and Kentucky, where it develops a unique style, and you hear it in a lot of the traditional music we kind of play. So that's what it's called. In some cultures, they call it the care chaser. And it really is like a care chaser because you can just idle your time. If you're bored, you just take this out and you don't have to think. So
that's why you don't have a care, right?
that's right. You keep it in your pocket, just like that.
And what about that mandolin?
Well, I'm
that
gonna
an instrument you have back there?
Yeah, that's a secret. Right up. All right, I'll take it out and show you. There's one there over there. Now, you'll see a little bit of a difference. This is the bowl-back mandolin. This is the classical, traditional mandolin that its ancestor was the Arabic oud, which was brought to Spain in the 8th century. And then as the oud had the same shape, the bowl back were a little bit larger, right? They were plucked with gut strings. The neck was not that long, but this part was at a right angle to take the tension off of the bridge here. So the strings were glued on. The bridge where the strings were attached was glued on. So this was then, as the Arabic instruments flourished through the south of Spain and spread to the rest of Europe, the Europeans created their own version of it, a hybrid form of it, and they called it the lute. And the lute came in different sizes and shapes. And this is in this kind of a high lute, high-strung lute, soprano lute. And it had gut strings just like the lute. It was played with the fingers. And it wasn't until 1720 that a Neapolitan instrument maker by the name of Vinaccia had the idea of creating an instrument with metal strings, double strings, 12-string guitar, because all the ancient instruments always had double strings. And lengthen the neck, and it's played with the pick, and instead of taking the right angle of the lutes that went that way, the headstock, he did the same thing but with the face of the sound top here, and bent it down this way.
Wow.
Yeah.
You see that? To take the tension off the strings and fasten the strings back here. So that was his creation of it. Now, this is actually a plucked version of the violin or the fiddle. So if you play a fiddle, this is the plucked version of the fiddle. It's tuned exactly the same way. And now this bowl back, this is from around 1893, 1894. It wasn't until 1915 this guy comes along saying this Orville Gibson. He started the Gibson Guitar Company. He was also, mandolins were really getting a lot of popularity in the 1800s. And I mean, they were found in the United States even during colonial times, but they always had this shape. It wasn't until 1915 that Orville created this shape, which has a flat back, as you can see. So the same way the guitar started out with a rounded back, but then it got to a flat back. And that happens to this mandolin here. And then American bluegrass music down in Kentucky, Tennessee, preferred the flat back. So there's your mandolin story.
Thank you, John. That's fantastic. Speaking of fiddle, I think I saw a fiddler somewhere.
Is he on the roof? The whole gang's here.
Hey, what's the Wait a minute. What's the difference between a fiddle and a violin?
You can't spill beer on a violin.
That's why he's always playing around.
Hobo Paul, would you tell us a little bit?
I mean, that's true.
Yeah, that's a fiddle, though, right?
Yeah, this is a fiddle. You can spill beer on this. It'll be okay. Probably sound better. Yeah, so this is, they look quite different, but they have this, well, you see, I have only 4 tuning pegs. John has, what, 8?
8, yeah.
8.
Double.
So the strings are double, but the same thing, E, A, D, and G, same strings, same tuning. The main difference is I have a bow. You can't pluck this, right? Right, but it's a bow. The bow, horsehair, horse's tail.
Get out of here.
Yeah, this is they teach it.
They let the horse let you do that?
Yeah, right. And so then, yeah, so it's a very vocal type melodic instrument.
Good for dancing.
It's good for dancing. As you can see, it's small, it's easily portable, it's easy to carry around, and it's loud. My neighbors. And I had, well, yeah, you see this little high-tech thing here. Real fiddle players don't have it. But yeah, and I have a little chin rest here, and you'll see that also my fingerboard doesn't have frets on it. These little metal bars.
We're lazy.
Yeah, so that you know, makes it gives me some flexibility, but it also I can also play out of tune very easily if I want to, right? But then it also lets me slide up and down. Where I can do it. Or you can do that on a guitar, but you have to bend it, right? You have to bend it up. But here I can just kind of slide my fingers up and down. And that's more like fiddle style, or blues, jazz, rock. You wouldn't do that if you're playing Mozart or Bach. That's about it.
What about the banjo? You see the gentleman on the right has a banjo.
Yeah, well, this instrument actually there's a straight line from Africa to the United States with the banjo, and sometimes it was called a banger or a bango. It actually comes from the region of Senegal and Gambia. There's an instrument there that's still played today called the akonte, and it looks almost identical to this, except it has 3 strings, no frets. It's usually made with a calabash, like this instrument on the back wall here, with a skin stretched over the front and tightened. And there's a bridge with 3 strings. This one's got 5 strings. They added this 5th thumb string here. And it's usually played with an open tuning. And the strings are not set at a very high tension, so you can do slides and what they call pull-offs and hammers, and you're basically playing with your both hands. So that's the banjo.
Okay. Why don't you play us a song?
Hell no. I got paid for
These
this.
hobos really aggressive.
You learned it,
What do you
right?
want to play?
Yeah, so,
This is what
Soldier's
song
Joy.
catchers have to go through, by the way.
You know Soldier's Joy?
Maybe, let's see.
I'm gonna fake it. How about that?
Chicken in the big French scratching the door, gravy with a dog bag, no bag, no. Ladies in the center and gentle like, oh, don't go too far. Grasshopper sitting on a sweet potato vine. Grasshopper sitting on a sweet potato vine. Grasshopper sitting on a sweet potato vine. I love him a chicken and says she's mine. I'm gonna get a drink, don't you wanna go? I'm gonna get a drink, don't you wanna go? I'm gonna get a drink, don't you wanna go? Hold on, soldier's joy.
Social music, people getting together, community. Now this music, this Appalachian music, again, you can see that connection with racial connection. The banjo there, which, as we saw in that slide, very much a signature sound in Appalachian music, and later bluegrass. But there were other kinds of groups. In the South in particular, there were these jug bands. You see a picture right here, playing jugs. These were informal gatherings to make music. Again, social music. people used whatever they could find to make instruments, including jugs, spoons, combs, and that new instrument that Molly over there is playing. Why don't you tell us, Molly, why don't you come up and give us a little demo?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I'll record it.
Yeah, I was just over here washing my laundry with this washboard. And I took some metal thimbles and I turned it into an instrument. There you go.
So this is a southern instrument used in both Zydeco and this jug band music. There's a couple other instruments we're not going to talk about today. The accordion, which I saw in Hobo Andy's basement tonight. Oh, by the way, made by Hohner, the same company that makes the harmonica. But there's the gentleman on the right there with his washboard. A corrugated tin is what we call an idiophone in the parlance of the ethnomusicologists.
That'd be good for you. You're already playing a auto harp, he plays it down to self.
Yeah, that is.
It would be like the next step over, right? I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
I know you're getting back at me.
Talk me into it.
Hobo Tim, I think you need a bath. There's the wash tub bass right there.
There you
That's
go.
exactly what that was, a tin bath that people would take their baths in. And with that long stick, a single string in which you would bend to pull the tension on the string. The wash tub bass also was incredibly important in the jug band. It was the bass, obviously, bass, low pitch. What about that instrument that you played before, Andy? Oh, you were gonna play right now.
I played before yesterday.
That's right.
This is called a dulcimer, and it is another zither, right? And it has this very droning sound. And no one's quite, one of the great folk artists of the folk revival was Jean Ritchie from Kentucky, and she did a lot of research, and no one knows quite sure how it got into the Appalachian Mountains. But it's very similar to a German instrument called a Scheinholt, also a Swedish instrument called a Hummel, and you find very different variations of this. But it was kind of revived in Appalachia, and also lived on till you'll see if you Google Joni Mitchell dulcimer on YouTube, you'll see a dulcimer. Also, the poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge wrote about a damsel playing a dulcimer when he was kind of hallucinating back there. So we're going to do a little tune.
Yeah, some of that Appalachian fiddle music.
I used to live on a mountaintop, now I live in town. I'm staying at the old hotel, Fort Betsy Brown. Very well, old Joe Clark, very well I say. Very well, old Joe Clark, I'm a going away.
Joe's house.